admin part. So let me share. There are just a few things we'd like to raise, but maybe the most important is the next meeting. So we have the next meeting. We have already decided on where, so it's more now on when. I'm not sure we have the final decision here at the meeting, but we can get that tentative answer perhaps on there are two weeks that is suggested by the host, that the 3rd of June to the 7th of June, and then the 1st of July to the 5th of July. So any kind of opinions on that? Yeah, Alexander. Thank you.
Yeah, the second of those is, at least for the German participants, quite bad, because there is like a summer school on video processing that happens basically on the Monday, Tuesday for the second week, first and second, and it could also be attracting some. I mean, there have been people from France also in the edition that we had. We actually hosted this in 2022 in Ilmenau. And there are probably also a few people who would be looking into VQEG who may be interested there. So yeah, it's not super bad kind of conflict of meetings, but it's, yeah, there's definitely for us a preference for the first.
I'm also a little bit concerned with people being on vacation in July.
I mean, it starts to be that period. I think the Northern Europe or Scandinavia is usually going first. For me, usually the first week of July is still not. I mean, could be flexible. I usually have been taking a vacation after the first week of July, but also sometimes including. But so yes, it starts to go into that vacation period. But I would say it's probably the latest we can have the meeting, unless we are really getting into vacation season. We have, I mean, the first week of June there, I don't know if there are any conflicts there. There are then a couple of conferences that follows the weeks after. There is the IMX and there is the COMEX conference. Both of them are in Europe. Both of them actually in Sweden. So, but then again, for some participants being both at the VQEG meeting and some of the conferences will be potentially being away like 3 weeks. But maybe that's basically the same with the July week as well. So, so I guess that's unavoidable. Alex, did you have another comment, or did you?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering. I'm not sure whether somebody from the host is the possible host is present, right? I mean, could this be? I mean, some information that we bring back to them so that they may reconsider.
I think Hadi is in the meeting.
Okay, maybe if I don't know whether these are really the absolute only ones, or if there could be one more option coming up, because I agree with it. I mean, I'm a bit skeptical that people would be able to travel to all of the three things just one after the other, right? I mean, considering that it's in the middle of the teaching. I mean, definitely, I think the first one is for us also preferred, as I said, right? But it is really, I mean, all these conferences which are tightly connected to what we're doing are then one after the other, right? Or could there be something a bit earlier in May even, or something? I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm very grateful that you're offering to host this at all. So it's a very modest question.
May I have a comment here?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Alex. Actually, we checked lots of the options and also conflicts with other conferences. So it's not only the QMAX and other, I forgot the name of the other one, but IMX, yes, we checked lots of things, but we are still open. So if you have suggestions, we need just to check the availability of the meeting rooms. We came to the July one because the university is closed and all the halls are actually available for us. But for 3 to 7 also we booked the room. But if you have any suggestions, so just we need to check. And then we can check and come back to you if you prefer, or the majority of the people prefer the other dates.
Right.
Thank you. I'd like to say, I don't think any week is going to be ideal. And I suggest we put these to a poll. Yanis?
Yes, Margaret, I think I tend to agree mostly with you that the first week of July, especially the 4th of July in between, is not the best solution for US based, I can say, at least participants who would need to travel to Europe. First of all, travel is going to be very expensive around that time, and many people have already made or will make other plans for the 4th of July. Now, I also understand the constraint of having back to back to back, which, by the way, happened this last summer, at least for me, because I traveled from IMX to COMEX and then all the way to San Mateo. But paradoxically, all three being in Europe could actually make it easier for US participants to make a long one trip across the Atlantic, to get there and then, make local flights. So I understand the complexities, but if it comes to which one of the two, I would personally say the 30th, 7th is the more likely, and that's the one I'm going to vote for. But I would say poll is the way to go, right? With most likely participants voting and deciding. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we definitely, because everyone is not participating in this meeting, we need to have a poll. But yeah, so let's, I will send out that probably, probably not now, just maybe in the beginning of January, because I think after the meeting now it will be Christmas, so there will be maybe not so much answer. So maybe, so I will send out some whole
Maybe the first week of January.
oh yeah, we'll try.
I agree. If we send it out now, it's going to be buried in people's inbox and not everyone will reply.
Okay, so let's do that and then make the decision. So then we had a couple of other topics. I think there were. We suggest, Margaret and me, that we are closing the joint effort group because it has not been doing anything for the last 10 years, I would say, or maybe even longer. So it's just taking up space on the homepage. So is there any objections to doing that? Okay, hearing none, then I think that's fine. And then you more, sorry. Okay.
I just wanted to say, I mean, can we keep the JEG hybrid name? I mean,
No, yeah,
I know
sure.
the
I mean,
original.
definitely, you can have in principle whatever name you want, but it was just this over a group called Joint Effort Group that we would like to just take away.
Okay. Fine.
And Enrico, the JEG group had led occasionally to confusion for JEG hybrid. So removing JEG from the web page will, I think, make it easier for JEG hybrid.
Okay, fine. So I agree with you. Thanks.
Sure. And I'd like to encourage everyone, if you have source video or data sets, video or image, that are not already listed on the VQEG website, please send me the link, ask me to add it to the web page to make it easier for other people to find your data sets. And the last thing is we did receive one liaison from the ITU. I would like to put on the screen.
Okay, I will stop sharing.
Let me... So this is from the last study group 12 meeting in September. There are 3 attachments that we won't look at. They're telling us about progress. First, that there's a draft new recommendation, G.1092, taxonomy of telemeetings from a QE perspective. It was consented, and I didn't look at its status. It's probably progressed fairly far. Might probably not all the way to fully approved, but it's probably also available with a password on the internet. And as I said, that's in the VQEG meeting file, so you can take a look at it. And to tell us about a new work item, user experience of multimedia on video telephony and video conferencing services. So that one has just started. So as I said, the files have 3 attachments that include the consented text of the first and the base text for the new work item. So take a look at those if you're interested. Thanks. And
so I think we don't have any more admin questions. I just want to take the opportunity to make a small advertising about the special sessions at the QMX conference. We have just put them out on the homepage. Take a look at those and see if you have a good paper to submit to any of those special sessions, and so I hope to get a number of very nice contributions there. And of course, feel free to reach out to any of the special sessions organizer if you have any questions or thoughts and so on for those. I think that was it. And then I think we should move on to the next session, which I think is
that's going back AVHD.
Right, you're right.
And I believe we start with Andreas Pastor.
Yeah. Should I start to share my screen?
Are we
Yes,
recording
you
now?
don't mind
we are
we
recording,
record? That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I will present you our work with a researcher from Netflix, about predicting local distortion introduced by AV1 using deep feature. And my supervisor is Patrick Lecalais from Nantes University. So the problem that we are trying to answer here is that video encoding is driven by measurement, SSE or SAD, that are pixel-based measurement, and these measurements are assessing the visibility of distortion in a cheap way in encoder, but they are not really well tuned to the human vision system and our perception. And our goal here is to try to correct this measurement at a local horizon in a video to improve the overall quality and reduce the bitrate usage. So what I will define in the next few slides will be like, what is this local horizon? And one requirement to try to answer this problem is we need to collect ground truth data to try to drive this research and also create a different metric. So I will also try to explain what is this ground truth data that we are collecting and how we use this data with a deep learning feature to try to correct the SSE that is evaluated inside the codec. So first of all, I will try to connect video encoding and how the human visual system is perceiving distortion. And what we will try to introduce is this perceptual unit. So a video encoder makes decision on coding unit by selecting mode or partitioning, transform, filter, a size of coding unit, and so on. And on the other side, we have the human visual system performing gaze that are spatially located. So this spatial located, what we are interested in is more like the foveated view. The foveated view is around 1 degree of visual angle, and that in this foveated view, the resolution of average human eyes is around 60 pixels per degree under standard viewing condition. And these gaze are also temporally located around 200 milliseconds, and they are aligned also on the motion and of different objects that we can see in the scene. And so what we introduce is this perceptual unit. So it's it has the same spatial temporal horizon as a gaze, and in which we want to try to model how the human visual system is perceiving distortion, and all of that to drive the coding unit encoding. So first of all, I will try to give some visual example to try to define and explain better what we call perceptual unit and also what we call perceptual differences curve, and how they are essential in the encoding process. So during encoding, what you have is a reference frame that you want to encode. So most of the encoding algorithm will partition this frame in a coding unit. And for each of these coding units, it will be, how to say, a search that will generate different candidates for this coding unit with different splits, different transform, different filtering, and so on. And what we want to try to obtain is the relation between the compression strengths. So on the x-axis, we have this compression strength that can be either a proxy for that can be, for instance, QP. And on the y-axis is the visibility or this fidelity loss that human visual system will perceive. So here is a fidelity loss. We can call that use fidelity since we want to be as close as possible as a reference block. We don't want to have any enhancement or whatsoever. And what we can have also is other coding unit that will have other curve, other perceptual difference curve. And the big question is that since we obtain different perceptual curve for different location, is how we can relate these two perceptual curve. and how we can obtain a unique fidelity loss scale that could relate different location of an image and compare distortion introduced across different block of reference frame. So first of all, I will try to detail a little bit how we create our dataset. And with this dataset, we call it on the tube content, since we have these perceptual units that are really located and have the form of a tube. And in more detail, I will explain how we perform content selection and how we collect the data. So to create the data, and this ground truth that we, this content that we want to subjectively evaluate. So what we use is the video set dataset that has a large collection of sources on more than 115. And what we do is that we are encoding these SRCs of high quality with libaom and the AV1 implementation. And we encode that in a random access mode at fixed QP. And what we obtain for each of these SRCs is 31 PVS that corresponds to different QP that we selected between 3 and 63 with a step of 2. And once we have this encoded sequence, what we do is that we are splitting the video in different tube. And this tube, we have the same size of what we call a perceptual unit, 64 by 64 pixel, and last 200 milliseconds, so around 12 frames for 30 FPS SRC. And this tube are also aligned on the motion in the scene to perform similar the similar thing that eyes do when they are tracking and pursue different object. And so what we obtain is this kind of what we call tube content. So we have a reference tube, the QP0 of the tube, and the different the different version with more and more encoding and compression. So we can see at QP63, maybe the mouse is not really clear, or the ears, or we lose a lot of information. And then what we do, since we obtain a lot of different tube contents, so among the 115 SRCs, we can extract maybe more than 1,000 tube per SRC. So we end up with 100K tube content. And we need to select the one that are the most interesting. So try to reduce this space of possible content to annotate. And what we did is to cluster content together using full reference quality metric, VMAF, SSIM, PSNR, and deep learning based full reference metric LPIPs. And what we are doing is that we are plotting on a scatter scale, scatter plot, on the x-axis a metric, for instance, SSIM, and on the other axis another metric, in that case VMAF, and we extract the relationship between these two metrics with the different version of the tube more and more encoded. So we start at 1 and 100 for VMAF for the QP0, and then the more we compress the tube, and the more we have a perceivable distortion, and the more it is reflected in the VMAF score or the SSIM score. And like that, we can cluster similar content together, since maybe for some type of content, the response of VMAF and SSIM will be particular, and we will cluster together different type of content. And then from this cluster that we extracted, we can select few content per cluster. In that case, it was a little bit more than 2 per cluster to select 268 tube content that we will subjectively annotate. So we have a large diversity. We try to represent all the content by having this group of cluster, and we select few examples per cluster. And then what we need also to do is on the other dimension, on the distortion dimension, we need to select a few number of distortion level out of the all possible one that we generated. So in our case, we select to have 6 distortion level out of the 31 that we have potentially to evaluate. And how to select 6 distinct distortion level? We use, in that case, VMAF as a fidelity proxy by using what we call dVMAF, 100 minus VMAF. So the closer we are to 0 and the more faithful we are to the reference tube, and the higher this dVMAF score increase and the more distortion are introduced. And this can vary content to content, and we hope that VMAF can be a good proxy. I see Ioannis has raised his hand.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. Just to clarify, the 100,000 tubes you started with already included the different distortions, right?
No. So we have 100K tube that are
just from the
extracted from.
sources.
Yeah,
Okay,
and so in total, if you want to, so it's
multiply by
100K,
31, right? So you have
100K tube SRCs.
Got it. Can you go to the next slide then? But you see, you here say you use quality metrics for your clustering, right?
Yeah.
Quality
So
metrics
here,
imply you already have distortion.
Yeah. So here, what you have in blue is this tube content. So it's the reference tube plus the 30 corresponding encoding of this tube. So
so
we can
your features are actually 31 times 4, right?
No, the feature will be the relationship between each curve, and we can extract this for each of the 100K tubes, reference tube.
There's some background noise. I'll sync up with you offline. Please continue.
Okay. So and to have the correct spacing between the different QP that we want to select, so we use this dVMAF, and what we do is that we select the highest QP that we want to evaluate, the QP around 55 or 59. So we randomly select some value between these two. And then what we do is to use the dVMAF to compute a spacing and to select interesting QP to evaluate. So why we do that is that we don't want to uniformly sample the QP value, since maybe for instance there, until maybe QP 20 or 30, it will be really difficult to notice any differences, as you can see with VMAF. And it will be interesting to start with a first distortion level above QP 30 and maybe 40, 50, and so on. So that's why we are using VMAF as a fidelity proxy. There I provided some example of tube content that we evaluated. So at the first line, I cannot pause. Okay, so the first line is the reference, so at QP0 of each of these tube, and then the different distorted level. Maybe this will be like QP30 or QP25, and so on until the QP55 or QP59, depending on this random process. And maybe, as you can see, for instance, for this phase, we can clearly see the difference between the QP0 and QP55. But for other patches, it's really difficult to notice these differences. So it's what we want to aggregate in our dataset. So what kind of subjective data we are trying to collect on this PU is this fidelity, how much faithful we are compared to this reference PU. And so, for instance, there we will have some examples. So between these two, we cannot notice anything. So the distance should be around 0. And the more the tube is compressed, and the more the distortion will be noticeable. Okay, and so what we want is to have this relationship that I introduced before between increasing distortion level, so the encoding strength, the QP, and the fidelity, or what the human eyes can perceive. And for instance, there you have the result of a subjective evaluation for this tube content with the reference that is subjectively estimated at 0. And the more you compress, and at some point you will start to perceive distortion, and at the end you will perceive a lot of distortion. So how to collect this ground truth data efficiently? There are a lot of subjective methodology available. There are like pairwise comparison-based subjective method, like what has been introduced or discussed a little bit before with the click dataset or BAPS dataset discussed by Sony people, like the 2AFC method. But us, what we choose is more based on quadruplet or triplet, with active sampling strategy that will allow us to select interesting pair to evaluate during subjective test. And to retrieve going from a preference judgment or subjective preferences to a perceptual continuum, what we use is the maximum likelihood difference scaling solver. And this solver, we modify it a little bit for our task. So what people are saying during a subjective viewing test is this intra or inter quadruplet. And basically what they have, what observer has to assess is where he perceives greater difference between the lower two patches, so these two, or the upper two patches. So for my point of view, I can directly say that there is more differences between these two than these two. So I will vote for this one. And in the inter quadruplet setup or scenario, they will have the same question where they perceive more distortion between these two and these two. And in my opinion, I can perceive more distortion between these two than between these two. And so what we collected is around 50,000 judgment, 25,000 in intra and 25,000 in inter from naive observer. And this experiment, we run it in crowdsourcing. And on average, each annotator annotated 40 quadruplet per session that were lasting around 7 minutes. And here I present some the result, the subjective data that we estimated using the MLDS solver. So what we have here is the test set of our data set that have 54 perceptual difference curve. And here we put PD MSE because we are putting in relation with the MSE. So on the x-axis, you have the increasing MSE, so increasing distortion between the reference tube and the coded one. And on the y-axis, you have this perceptual difference that we estimated with our subjective study. And what we can see is that if we are using the MSE, so MSE or SSE are closely related, it's just a scaling by the number of pixels present in a block. And what we can see is that for some content, if we use MSE as a predictor, we will overestimate the perceived distortion for this content, and we will underestimate for this content. So to give you a little bit of example, for instance, this content in greenish is this content where you have the reference here and the highest distorted version here. And we can see that we perceive distortion, but here the average MSE between these two tubes is around 50 MSE pixel difference. And for these two patches, the MSE is around 5. So only on average 5 pixel value are 5 on the luminance are changing. And we can see similar or higher differences because some detail on the patches completely disappear. Okay, and so now what I will introduce is the metric that we created from this data set, and how we model also this PD curve that I introduced just before. So the process of the model is split in four steps. First, we try to model this PD curve to extract knowledge, and then we use a deep learning feature that we extract from the reference tube only to try to predict this PD-MSE curve. And what we do to help for learning is to reduce the dimension of the deep learning feature using PCA. And then we train the SVM model to predict the characteristic of the PD curve. So about this characteristic of PD curve, so what we have here is example of PD MSE curve. So on the x-axis, again, the MSE introduced by the compression and for our content. And on the y-axis, the perceptual difference estimated by our subjective study. And what we can see is that some of the relationships are more linear and some of them are more like exponential. So what we did is model each of these curves for each of the content in our data set by trying to find the best A parameter that will map the MSE values to the perceptual difference, estimated perceptual difference. And the second modeling that we propose is using this exponential fitting. So here, A and B parameter are optimized to fit as best as possible the PD curve. And our model will try to predict this A and B's instead of trying to directly predict the curve. So to try to give some prior knowledge into the training. And then what we do on the other side, so why we use only a deep learning feature from the reference tube is that we are trying to aim to correct the MSE. So the MSE is really cheap statistic that is available during encoding. And what we are aiming to do is to use the deep learning feature that we can extract before the start of the encoding and try to correct this MSE. And so like that, we don't have to introduce inside the codec really expensive deep learning metric that will increase the encoding complexity. So the process that we follow is that we are taking any neural network architecture as a backbone, and we feed each of the frame of the reference tube inside the network, and we extract the activation of each of the layer of the network, similarly as done by LPIPS or DIST or other deep learning model, but they're only from the reference tube. And then we average this information to have around 1,000 features, for instance, for AlexNet. And what we do next, since as you could see before, our data set has 260 different tubes, and there we have more than 1,000 features. So there is too much, there are too many features to learn from. So what we try to do is to try to reduce this space by leveraging our database of 100K tubes. So what we do here is we learn PCA projection using the 100K unlabeled data set to try to reduce the dimension. And what we use is maybe the top K principal component of this projection to learn and to predict the PD curve coefficient. So in more detail, the different training options that we have is to learn SVM by pulling this deep learning feature that were projected. So the SVM take as input the top K PCA projection and output a slope, a coefficient A, that will weight inside the codec, the MSE. And this slope time MSE should reflect the perceptual difference that the human eyes judge. Or we can also learn with two SVM to predict two different parameters to predict directly the A and B of an exponential fitting of the PD curve. And the last option is, without using this prior knowledge or prior fitting, is to directly use a SVM that will take as input the PCA component plus the MSE to directly predict the PD difference. So as a result, we perform a training on the train set of our data set. And on the test set, we reported the performance of different full reference IQA, VQA metric that have no semantic information. It's more just pixel-based metric. And then also deep learning-based IQA metric like LPIPS and DIST. And other reference only, we call this metric reference only, since they extract only statistic from the reference tube, as WPSNR or XPSNR are doing. And the last part is our model that are also reference only and use the semantic feature extracted by deep learning model. So what we can see is that we achieved the best overall performance among this compared to reference only metric, but also deep learning based metric. And the only metric that is difficult to beat and still better is when we are retraining a version of VMAF at a local scale. So there is the VMAF HD that is performing not that great. And when we retrain from VMAF feature, we can increase the performance of VMAF. So in conclusion, so human perception is really important to drive encoding algorithm. And we saw that when we just rely on MSE, we have a big misleading prediction. And we also created a quite large data set for this inter-content scaling. We benchmark different quality metric and create our own metric. And now what we are trying to work on is to incorporate this metric inside the RDO process of libaom to try to correct the MSE prediction. And maybe another future ongoing work could be also to try to go from this local evaluation scale to global video quality as a way maybe to make modification in VMAF by leveraging this local quality estimation during the pooling of VMAF. So thanks for listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Andreas. Do we have any questions or discussion?
I put a question on the chat because there is noise on the background here.
Okay.
The question, what is the complexity of the version of the neural networks that you tested compared to encoding complexity of AV1?
Yeah. So so the different model that we tested are from efficient net that are maybe quite big depending on the version, to mobile net that are around, I think, 0.2 or 0.3 gigaflop per 1080p content. So I think in our case, we targeted AV1, and AV1 also how Netflix is using it with the slowest process preset to try to have the highest, how to say, like we could improve a lot based on that, since there will be a lot of complexity. So if we just, I don't have any Mac or you know this to compare with AV1 the number of operation that is performed by AV1. But in a time-wise complexity, I think we can extract the feature at maybe 1 or 2 frames per second. And when I was using AV1, it was more like encoding at 1 or 2 frames per minute. So we are still, faster than that was the complexity of AV1.
Thank you, Andreas.
But
Of
again,
course,
again,
we need to equalize CPUs and GPUs here. So again,
yeah, exactly.
but thank you. I think this order of magnitude that you provided is very encouraging.
Yeah, but when I'm talking about 1 or 2 frames per second, it's on the CPU. So not using GPU for even for deep learning feature extraction. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And again, we need to understand the level of multi-threading, et cetera, but again,
Exactly.
this is there are many elephants in the room of complexity, but I'm happy that you already have partially addressed it. Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, that was very interesting and an intriguing approach. So thank you for that, Andreas.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you. Our next presentation is from Camille from AGH University.
Yeah, hi. Mam mikrofon.
Camille. Okay.
Yeah. I'm here. Lucian started to talk to me outside of the conversation. Sorry, I have to share my screen. It's first time I sharing the screen on the Zoom meeting, so I have to reload my my Zoom. So give me please 2 minutes, and I'll be back. Let's try without the headphones. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now it works. Sorry. Yeah, so I have like short topic and short presentation, and rather I would like to spend time on discussing on it. So today I would like to share our observation after doing pretest for with the survival task. So we have like few minor issues, and we would like to discuss how severe they are if you use this methodology, and also how do you deal with them, and have short discussion what we can do about them. So the first problem that we have with survival task was the time management. So we were manipulating both the numbers of items that we were discussing during the game and number of participants, and even though it was really hard to standardize the time. So different groups were like have really long discussion or really short discussion, and from our perspective, if we use it for planning an experiment, this is issue because it's depend on how for example, how much measurements that we can have during the test. So it was a bit unpredictable. So this is first problem that we have with this game. Also, in the standard itself, there is no feedback for this game. So originally in the books, after choosing those items, participants should have some kind of feedback. So we went forward those books to provide this feedback because we have few iterations of this game. And yet another problem is that when we did give this feedback to participants, it was rather not motivating, rather opposite, because people were like felt judged. So if we would like to have few scenarios one after another, there's a bit problem of this, because there is no feedback in the standard itself, and also if we give it, it's a bit problematic. And we have also some observation about like editorial issues. First one is the quality of images that are in the standards. This is a screenshot from the standard itself. So yeah, it's a bit problematic if we use it in this form. On top of that, there are a few minor problems with like misleading pictures. So here it should be a lighter without the gas. So the purpose of this lighter is just to be able to start a fire with something different. But here is like car lighters, so it's not like adequate to the task itself. And what we also see as a bit problem with editing is the fact that we have different types of units. So, for example, we have foot square, or we have this proof form of writing how much is the strongest the alcohol, which is not typical for Europe. And also in another part of the standard, we have units which are typical for Europe. And here you can see also the problem with the misleading picture to the description, because this is not like parachute silk. So we thought that it's something that might be addressed or might be a subject of the discussion during the VQEG meeting. So the main three problems that we have are those editorial issues that I meant, lack of feedback in the standard, and also time management. We found it really challenging. So right now I would like to hear your feedback about the standard. Did you use it, or how do you overcome those issues, or what we should do about them? It would be nice.
I have not used the standard, so I don't have any feedback, but this sounds really annoying.
Yeah, if you open the standard and see those images and also misleading descriptions, you start to prepare the experiment. And well, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be an inspiration and I should redo it, or we should use the same standard everywhere. It would be, I think, much more standardized, yeah, if we have, for example, the same pictures. So that was a bit annoying for me also.
Is there anyone connected who has, other than Camille, who has looked at P1301? Sounds like there isn't. I suspect Gunilla from Ericsson might be a good person to talk to about this. Oh, Pablo.
Okay, hi. I don't know if you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I've not used the recommendation. I've kind of have a look at this when searching for tasks for some experiments. We never ended up using this one. So yeah, I think that Margaret's suggestion to ask Gunilla could be a good starting point. I think that at least the editorial issues should be addressable. Typically, the problem with ITU, or sometimes the difficulties of ITU when submitting a recommendation is about the rights of the images. So basically, the thing is that providing better images should be possible, but you need to ensure that you have the rights to do that. And maybe simply when whoever wrote that recommendation, this is the best thing that they found without having a problem of copyright. I don't know, but I guess that even these days should be easier to have or create or whatever images with the proper right management with that.
I had also copyright issue in my mind, also because the game itself, it's covered with the publish rights, yeah. So it's part of the book, this game, and but it's the part of the standard. So I'm not sure how to deal with it.
Yeah. So, but at least you know, even if the image quality is not perfect, well, there should be ways of overcoming this, and definitely at least the improving the thing so that the description is uniform, the units are uniform, or you have alternatives or whatever, you know, something which looks more professional is okay. On the other hand, I guess that when people is using it, they're probably adapting it to if people is using it, which I don't know, they might be adapting it. I've kind of had the idea that it was used by people in the literature, but I would need to check.
Yeah,
So
for sure it's used, for sure.
I mean, the task is used. I don't know if the task as described in the standard is used. That's the thing. So I believe that's, yeah. So when you're talking about the lack of feedback, so which is the feedback about in the original one?
Okay, so in the original, you have to rate those items. So like make the list from most important to less important. And then there is feedback from professionals. So you can have this like criteria of success, yeah, for the group.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't think that there was ever the intention of having this, because I believe that it was more the task to enforce conversation rather to other thing. But I think that these issues, and especially the time management, this is more important for an experiment. So I think that given that we are proposing alternatives for that in PIXC, we could alternatives which basically keep the spirit of the task as it is, as you know. I think that we could, as part of the work that we are doing for PIXC, we could try to write a propose an amendment of this to ITU, so we can talk to Gunilla offline, because I guess that she's not here today. Maybe simply try to, if it could be if there's a reasonable path to have it accepted by ITU, we could simply write a proposal on that, because I think that they are kind of easy to address, let's say. Aren't they? So that we could like write a clear proposal on what should be changed and you know what should be the right or a better way of doing it. Am I right, Camille? Or
Yeah. I guess I also see that Alexander raised his hand.
Yeah, I think that this is super valid points you raised, Camille. Thanks for that. Right, I'm a bit involved in this Q10, of course, for historic reasons, and of course, there's no intention to have things be suboptimal, right? So it's very good if people point out problems. So I think the easiest way really would be if you could formulate it in an email and you know, and attach your slides. And send that to Gunilla and also Janto Skowronek, who are the two co-rapporteurs for this question. I mean, if you are a member of ITU, we could consider some contribution from you, but there can also be a contribution that is. So the next Studio 12 meeting is, I think it is in April, right? And so I think there's some time to prepare even a formal document, and you can also write a contribution and then be. You know, we affiliate you, so to speak, for the contribution to someone who is a member or something like this, right? I think this is really good or important to bring it up there, right? If there are such problems with the standard. I think that some people have used it, but probably, like Pablo also said, I think they are adapting things and are not using really the pictures from the standard and so on. So I would be thinking that they are more inspired by it, which I think is anyways a general thing, which I find very interesting, right? I mean, also for things which are even closer to our VQEG activities here, which is P910 or so. I mean, how closely are people following a standard, right? So there's the standard, and then, you know, is it really, I mean, exactly presenting the scale as it should be, like, and then ideally it should be like that also. I mean, for example, in the standard, or is it more you have a scale which you claim to be from the standard, but then you have a graphical implementation which actually looks quite different, and so on, right? So I think that's a generally quite interesting topic.
Yeah, thank you for that. Also, after IMG, we use like the new iteration of this task. We made some changes to provide this consistency in terms of the length of the discussion. So also maybe after this contribution, we'll have more data and insights. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Small thing, I think we're not in a hurry for that. So maybe it's not, maybe there's no need to target the April meeting. Yeah. We could probably learn a bit more from the IMG experiments, and then with those conclusions, propose a fix to that in the meeting afterwards.
Yeah,
whenever it is up.
Yeah, it would be optimal. Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Camille, I expect they would greatly appreciate your input on this topic. The IT recommendations are all driven by people contributing and pointing out, here's a problem and here's how we'd like to fix it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our last two talks of the meeting are from the Immersive Media Group, starting with 232. Now, 232 was put on the schedule, but there is a name and no author. So is there somebody here knows the details static mesh database from TSMD? And if not, we will drop that. I'm not hearing anyone. And the other one was
Margaret, I think I remember, I don't remember where I saw that. This is from the Tencent group. So I saw Joel just earlier. Joel, are you still here or you hang up? Okay, well, I cannot speak for Tencent, but all I can say is that these, to the best of my knowledge, are contributions coming from the Tencent lab, which is actually very active on the topic of mesh compression. So I believe one is a dynamic and the other is a static mesh. Yeah. But I would rather someone from Tencent present it.
Yes, I can confirm you. I think it's from Joel and the team.
Okay, so I agree with Yannis. It's the static mesh database and then a dynamic color database from TSMD and TDMD. I don't see a Josette on the list of people currently connected. Is there anybody associated with those presentations connected?
Maybe just note to send then an email to Joel to make a presentation in an upcoming meeting.
Okay. Yannis, can you send me an email with the email address and name of that person? I'll send the email, just I don't want to get that email address wrong.
We'll do that right away, Margaret.
Thank you. Okay, that is the end of our agenda, and it's been a really interesting week. So thank you to everyone who's been here, and I look forward to seeing you in the spring. Do we have any last issues before we close, Shell?
No, I don't think so. I think it has been a great week, very interesting presentations and discussions, and looking forward to the spring meeting or early summer meeting. So
happy holidays, happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah, enjoy the break.
Happy holidays, everyone. Bye.
Enjoy. From me too. Happy holidays, everyone, and thanks for organizing. Very nice meeting. Bye bye, guys.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.
Ladies.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye bye.